Hello again. Hello. Good morning. Good morning, everyone. What a pleasure it is to be here. I'm going to introduce myself. I'll talk for a bit, then I'm going to pass over to the panel because the women who are here, I think you probably want to hear from more than me. But just in case, can you hear me okay? All right, is this better? Yeah, okay. So my name is Jo Phoenix. Some of you may be familiar with me from my employment tribunal against the Open University. I love that. I love it. Today I'm here in a different capacity, though. I am a professor of criminology, or rather, if you've heard me speak, you will have heard this line. I masquerade as a criminologist. I only identify as a criminologist. I'm actually a sociologist who has spent 35 years studying justice as it relates to age and as it relates to gender. I've spent the vast majority of my academic career researching policy reform and policy implementation in the fields of prostitution, child sexual exploitation, and of equal importance to me, at least, is youth justice. I'm a feminist by nature, but I am not, until very recently, a feminist scholar. I always had an interest in gender. My feminism informed what I chose to study. It didn't necessarily inform how I did that. So we have an amazing panel here today. We have Marzia Babakarkhail, who is a former Afghan family... Marzia, can you hold your hand up? Yeah, just Marzia. Marzia is a former Afghan family court judge and a lifelong women's rights advocate. She founded the Afghan Women's Social and Cultural Organization and has continued her advocacy from the UK since fleeing Taliban threats. Since the 18th of August, she has been leading a campaign for the resettlement of Afghan women judges and has, I hope you will see this afterwards, we'll talk about it at the end of the panel, she has written a letter, drafted a letter, which she hopes that you will use to write to your MPs, asking them to take seriously the plight of Afghan female judges. At the end of the session, I'll tell you how you can get a hold of the copy of that letter. All you have to do then is download it, sign it, and send it to your MP. Okay, Maggy Moyo is a human... Maggy? Yeah? Is a human rights activist fighting against injustices within the immigration and asylum system here in the UK, much through her role with the Right to Remain as the organizer for Manchester and Liverpool. She'll tell you more about herself in her talk. We then have the amazing Atena Daemi, human rights activist. And women's rights activist, and sitting next to her, because Atena is not a native English speaker, I'd like to introduce Tuba Zakipur, who will be Atena's interpreter. Tuba is herself a women's rights activist and a journalist, so I am humbled to introduce this panel, truly humbled. Before they start, I thought I would say a little bit about why this panel is called State Punishment, State Sanctions, and the Fight for Women's Rights. I say this every chance I get. I'm 61 years old. I'm old, and I remember a feminism from a while ago that was a struggle against militarism and nuclear annihilation, against the punishing regimes of welfare that meant women in this country could lose all their benefits if they cohabited with a man, not even necessarily their partner. I remember a time when we fought against the denial of rape in marriage, the denial of domestic violence, against a court system that held a girl of 14 years old to be guilty of contributory negligence to her own rape because she wore a skirt that was too high. I remember a time when lesbians lost their children in family courts for the simple reason of being a lesbian. I remember a different time than now. And that time, we didn't talk about rights. We talked about a struggle against the constraints of class, poverty, racism, and sexism. We talked about social structures. But times change, and politics change, and laws change. By the early 2000s, the militarism and the threat of nuclear annihilation that marked the Reagan and Thatcher era and the Cold War was beginning to be a memory. We had a new era of peace and globalization. The Equality Act consolidated 50 years of piecemeal legislation and gave women and lesbians a legal framework to challenge discrimination in the workplace and in the provision of services. Social policy reforms stopped the overtly punitive and highly sexist welfare regime that poor women experienced. Criminal justice and governments began to take male violence against women seriously, and we saw the growth of a third sector in this country to address women and girls' needs. My own research was part of that shift. I charted the fundamental changes in prostitution laws and policies. In the 1990s, when I started, it was the women in prostitution who bore the burden of criminal justice punishment at the same time as having no protections. The truism we all knew from the 90s and early 2000s was that women are simply over-policed and underprotected. Now, this is all by way of suggesting that by 2010s, or the 2010s, most of us watching these changes knew two things. We knew first that for the most part, by 2010, women and girls had achieved formal legal equality and were entitled to justice, whatever that meant. But of course, we also knew the second thing, that in practice, that justice was an illusion because we had not achieved substantive justice, meaningful justice. We knew that in the policing of child sexual exploitation, if a girl did not conform to the stereotype of a victim, she was denied justice. We knew that even though the Sexual Offences Act had changed some of the problems of the previous regime, that actually taking a case through the courts left women with the horrors of the interrogation of the courts and a form of secondary victimization. We knew that women in prostitution were afforded protection and diversion, but only if they cooperated with the then modern welfarist regimes of debt, counseling, and so on. We also knew that times were changing and technologies were changing, and the way that women and girls were being exploited and abused was changing. So fast forward another decade, and the struggle for women's justice in the UK has actually never been so vibrant. So I want to come to now. Never in my 61 years of observing, researching, campaigning, have I seen such a belief in lawfare as a tool to achieve women's justice. What we see now is that law has become the battleground for feminist politics, whether it's over sex-based rights, whether it's over free speech, equality in public life, workplace justice. We have, as women, we have turned not to slogans, but to statute and judicial processes, to the Equality Act, to employment law, to the Human Rights Act, not because we think the law is perfect, but because without it, there can be no justice for women. What this means, though, is engaging with the state, with the government, not just at national level, but at international level too. Yet, The struggle for liberation, for a just world for women and girls, has always had an extremely uneasy relationship with the law and government. On the one hand, law is the space where women have won our most important victories: the right to personhood, the right to vote, the right to own property, the right to work, the right to divorce, the right to bodily integrity, the right to live free from freedom and discrimination. But on the other hand, particularly those of us who may not come from Western Europe, who remember a different time, who have experienced different things, we know that law is also the mechanism through which women have been defined, sanctioned, punished, and diminished. Law offers us recognition only after it has measured us, as a wife, as a mother, as a victim, as an offender, as respectable, as deviant. So feminism's relationship with the law and the state has never been simple faith or outright rejection. It has always been a tension between hope and critique, between justice and power. That is why we have the panel that we have today, to begin to explore some of these contradictions, to think again about what it means when we say we struggle for women's rights, and to remember that using that very language involves us in a struggle with a government and a state and a laws that we have an ambivalence towards. Okay, thank you. I'm now going to turn over to Marzia.
Thanks. Hello, good morning, conference. Assalamu alaikum, dear sisters. Okay. Good morning, conference. And hello, assalamu alaikum, salam barama, khosh amadin. I feel more enjoyable when I speak with my language. Because that remind me of my country. They give me more power. So my name is Marzia Babakarkhail. I'm a former female judge. I was very lucky because I grew up in a very well-educated family. My dad was self-employment. My mother was a teacher. And the dad was always encouraged me and our sisters to be educated. And education was kind of important thing in our family. So the age of 7, I encouraged and inspired by one of the female judges in Palakhumri, the city I was born, and inspired by Judge Nafisa Shirzad, and I wanted to become a judge. So I think we all, sometimes women be very good to give power to each other, but sometimes women can destroy you as well. There's always life is have two sides. So the time I became a judge, there was 22 female judges was in my country. So when I became a judge, I was thinking I achieved and the life is okay, now everything is perfect. But one day, when I faced with very serious challenges, when I saw the male judges, how they treat women in the court, and how there are injustice around the court, and I realized my naivety. Sometimes we just look for a status, for a good position, for power, but when we see that's not the reality. When I became a judge, I realized I was very naive person. I was just looking to be someone, to be a judge or to have a good salary, good life. In Afghanistan, in my time, divorce was very shame, a big shame at that time. But that time, the women was from the villages. When they divorced, they cannot be back to their houses because they were not allowed. The family, they were thinking they will make ashamed the families because why she is divorced that time. And I start to establish the help of some of my friends a small shelter. Like this is very small shelter. So my work and my passion was not popular with the Taliban, with my community, with some of my member of the family. So that time I was at around 29 or 30 with no life experience. The Taliban came to Afghanistan in the first time in power, and they came to my house and they tried to kill me. And they came to my house, they broke the door, they insulted my mother, my family. But we survived and we escaped to Pakistan. But when I was in Pakistan, I saw the young generation, Afghani young generation. They are around the market, they are cleaning, they are doing, things they shouldn't do. And the help of some of my colleagues, we established a school for Afghan refugees. Conference, you can believe this, today my student, they have a PhD, they have 2 PhDs, they have 2 masters, they speak well English, they're working in United Nations. That is the real Afghanis. We are not uneducated people. We are very hard-working people. Doesn't matter how people they want to introduce people to the to the world. When I established the school, the time I was very lucky because the Taliban was over and we was back to Afghanistan, and seems everything was quite okay. Again. My mother was stayed in Pakistan because the Taliban, when they came, they took everything from us. One day, when I was back to Pakistan to see my mother, and again they hit me by car. And I was 6 months in the hospital, but because I had the first time in my experience with the Taliban, and this is the second time experience with the Taliban, I never stopped. And when I came back from the hospital and I back to Kabul, that was the first time in Karzai government, one young journalist was killed by the Taliban. And I made a press conference and I said the Taliban should stop to do this. When I was back to Pakistan, and again, we received threatened calls, and my mother told me I have to leave. Conference, leaving my country was not something I wanted. I never ever wanted to become a refugee or asylum seeker in a different country. I built a beautiful life in Afghanistan. Education, everything I knew needed. No one needed to move their countries willingly. There are always some problem they leave. Like my sisters, like Judge Munira, a lot of people. So today, I just want you all to know, as a refugee, I try my best to contribute, to stand for the things, for dignity in this country, and however I can to contribute, not me, all the refugees. When I came in this country, because my mom was encouraged me, but when I arrived in this country, I cannot speak a word of English. I was 43 years old, homesick, problem, lost everything. I was not a baby chicken. Yes. So, alone, in 2010, I lost my mother. I was not allowed because of my security to go back to just say the last goodbye to my mother. If you're single, you know how you're connected with your mother. You know how it's painful when you're not allowed because of your safety to go and just say, bye, mom. You're going now. I'm going. But I was not allowed. Okay. That was time, was not Skype, that was not WhatsApp to watch things. I was in a very bad condition, mental health problem for 2 years. One time I've been to the hospital because of my injuries in Afghanistan for checkup, and the nurse was put 2 masks, 1, 2, and I said, what's this? And when I finished, and the lady told me, please look after yourself. You have very bad smell. And she said, I'm not judging you, but please look after yourself. No, I'm really happy for the way she was told me. I think she opened the door to me. When I came home, and I decided to just full stop with this chapter. Make a new chapter. I'm not in this world to everyone judge me. We are not in this world. Everyone judges and everyone gives the agenda of our life. We are our maker, no one else. So after that, I joined the Oldham College. I worked and I paid my college, and I learned the language. And one day I was in the window and I saw everybody is going to school to work. But when I came back and I said, I think I don't have the most important is the English. English is my oxygen. Really, I called English is my oxygen. If there is no English, there is no freedom for us. That's the reality. We should accept it. And I learned the language, the English language. It's not easy, but still I am really happy I can stand for my country, for women around the world. When the Taliban is back, suddenly my colleagues, they add me in their WhatsApp group. And after that time, I start to campaign for the Afghan female judges and also for the women they work in the legal system in my country. Today, I'm so honored to see Judge Munira in front of me. Young judge, the hope for Afghanistan. Always I'm saying this, young people, you are the hope of my country. You will be back with more knowledge, with more power to make a difference for women in Afghanistan. But campaigning, advocacy is not an easy job, like it's a soldier job. You have to knock one door for 3 times. One time, I remember, I received always negative response from the government, from the policymakers, from everyone. One night, I direct emailed the Secretary General of United Nations. And I explained to him, I said, this is the real life of the judges. They have no life, they have no protection, they have no safety, they have no money, because when the Taliban became in power, they removed all the women judges from their seat. They have no life, for single, for married, for both of them. And he kindly responded me, very kind response I received from him. But I think I'm not allowed to share the response. So that is the way of advocacy and work. I spoke with Professor, it has been maybe more than 2-3 weeks, and I explained to her and I asked to please help me with this, and also FiLiA and I think the management team. I spoke with them before, it has been 6 months ago, and I spoke, how can I ask my sisters, please stand for Afghan female judges. I'm not asking to for some things that's not real. Their life really in danger. I have a lot of articles. Everyone welcome to read it, and Just I need sisters. I need your support. Your support is my hope, and my hope is not just my hope. This is the wish of the sisters. They in Afghanistan, and they asking, requesting your support. Please stand for us. Women, when women can be more powerful, when women be honest with each other and care for each other. Women just shining around the world. Women, 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 women. Thank you so much.
Amazing.
Wow. Just simply wow. At the end of today's session, I will tell you how you can download the letter to write to your MP. It's Marzia who has drafted the letter. If you want to show support for what you've heard, please, please, please check my Twitter profile today. Oh, X. Check X today. Check my Substack. You'll be able to get a hold of the information. Now, without further ado, I'm going to turn over to Maggy. Oh.
Wow, that was powerful. Thank you so much. Password.
Yeah, we're closed out. Have we got tech support in here? We're closed out of the laptop. FiLiA 25? Thank you. You start. Shh, nobody say. I also meant to say at the beginning, please be aware that this is being filmed. Okay, so if you do not wish for your face to be on the film, please don't get in the front of that camera eye. Okay? Unlike me. Hang on. You start, Maggie. I'll get us up.
Okay. Thank you so much, and thank you for sharing that. It has just made my work even easy, in the sense that I won't have to cover why we leave our home countries and all the struggles that we go through. So that has opened the doors for me. So my name is Maggy, as I have been introduced, and I wear so many hats. Maybe sometimes I'm just too ambitious, but I feel like all the work that I do has been inspired by everything that I have gone through personally, and some of the things that I've seen my friends, family, friends, and even my mom go through that have made me to do the work that I'm doing. At the moment, I work for Right to Remain, which is a migrant justice organization. We do legal education, whereby we kind of simplify all the legal changes that are happening in the UK for asylum seekers and refugees to the language that they understand. And I also lead a group of people with lived experience within the migration system. We do a lot of campaigning. And also, after the far right, last year, I co-founded Unified Resilience, which is a CIC company where we need space for ourselves and our allies together, where we share a little bit about culture and the challenges that we go through. Simple because most of the support groups that we have locally, we tend to isolate ourselves, but then seeing so much love and solidarity, I felt like it would be nice to be in a space where we meet other people. So I would just say, my journey wasn't an easy one, where I was like, okay, I feel like I gained my strength and my resilience after I attended a FiLiA conference in Manchester, which was about 3 or 4 years ago. and was still seeking asylum. Oh, not even then. I think it was 6 years or 7 years ago. I was still seeking asylum at that moment, and with our group where I used to attend LISC, we were invited to attend the FiLiA conference. And when I attended the conference, I had so many scary stories that are happening on women around the world. Because when you are in a situation, you always think, I'm the only one, or no, this is only happening in our country. But when I got to be in that space, I was so horrified. And when I had British women speaking about their challenges, I was like, what? What's going on? So that's what really kind of gave me the strength, because I was at a losing point. I left my country about 9 years ago, and leaving a 6-year-old. I left her when she was 6, coming to sort herself in this country. Everything that she has spoken about, why we live, and personally what I saw on my journey when I was coming here, some of those things were very horrific. And it wasn't a matter of an option that I was supposed to leave my country, and where am I going? Was I going to UK, or was I going to Canada, US? All we were taking as a group of young girls was a place of safety. But along that journey, there were exploiters, there were people who were abusing us to take us from point A to point B, from point C to point D. So I was seeing that. And for men, they were being given other options to see how they find themselves. For women, because we had what they wanted, they were doing whatever they want. So those are the things that I really witnessed on my journey. And it broke me in the sense that I was really scared to speak up. Even when I got here, the weather itself was so intimidating. The food, I could not stand. Potatoes and beans and stuff like that. So, and the trauma as well. So I was isolated until I had to come to these organizations where we were being supported and learning to speak up. And when I went to FiLiA, after the conference, I went to Lisa Marie. I said, even if I'm seeking asylum, I want to do something. And she said, come on board. Come on board, we'll hold your hand. So with that on its own, I managed to attend sessions. I managed to learn to speak up. I managed to speak up from some of our members who managed to get their refugee status before I got mine, which was fine with me, because I feel like the advantage with me, I was being able to communicate in English, and some of the women that I was meeting, they could not communicate in English, and I was being given that privilege to read their stories, and I could be like, this woman has gone more traumatic spaces than me, and I feel like she needs support. I need to fight for these women. So that alone took me from my mental state, from my depression, to wake up in the morning and go to that place and volunteer and support, not realizing that I was being recognized. I was recognized by Manchester BBC, who some of the people locally felt like I was doing something good and recognized me, and I got some awards. Still, I was still in the process. I was still going through a lot on my own. So just to capture a few, what we go through as women when we are seeking asylum is the legal representation. There's a place that is called reporting, where you need to go every week or every month or every 6 months to go and report and announce yourself that you are in the country. I have to remind you that you are living in their accommodation, but still they want you to be in that place to go and report yourself. What is written on that paper that you carry with you? It says you are liable to be detained. So for me, that used to be a heavy paper that I would carry, because when I go in there, I knew I'll be detained. I might not come back home. And also no recourse to public funds, getting £35 a week, and that is all you have to survive on: toiletries and food. Destitution, if your case is refused and they don't believe you, because there's this culture of disbelief, then you need to be on the streets. And what happens when you're in there? You get exploited again. And then when you can't find anywhere to squash or to suffer safe, then you'll be liable to be detained. So my journey wasn't an easy one, and it took a lot for me to be where I am. The first picture, I was at that reporting center, and it used to depress me a lot just to be in there, and not only myself, but many other women. So one thing that I would love to talk about when we're talking about the legal systems, which comes to feminists and women, the legal representation. If we don't have legal support, how are you going to navigate the asylum system? And we have culture, we have religion, and some of the things that we were witnessing in court, the questions that they were asking us, the language that they were asking us to use, we were not too comfortable. If you're talking about a woman who has been raped, a woman who is lesbian, who have to prove their sexuality, the questions that they were asking you, that you have to describe that thing on its own, was really difficult for us. And which means if you can't really explain that I was caught having sexual intercourse, then with another woman, if you are a lesbian woman, then which means you'll be liable to be detained, which means you are lying. So I'm talking about women who can't even speak in English, like I said, with culture. We've never been to court, and you are now in court. They're asking you all those kind of things that, okay, this is what you need to say so that we can give you this refugee status. For me, I felt like I was trading my humility to get that piece of paper. And this is what made me to even fight more, that the language that you are forcing us to use so that we can get this refugee status is not right. And the good thing is that I knew I had powerful women behind me, as much as they didn't know, but I had those powerful women that I'll come back and say, is this correct? Is this how they're supposed to ask us? Is this how they're supposed to do things? And Lisa Mary will be saying, no, we'll need to find a solicitor for you, and if you're comfortable, would rather find a female solicitor. So it made things easier. But then there's a lot of us, which is making things very difficult. As much as they would try, there's so many of women who are struggling, who are in this process. They cannot afford to make sure that we have our own legal representatives, that they can pay from their own pockets. In Manchester, in Liverpool, in Newcastle, so many places you manage. So one thing that we did just last year, we had a campaign on Fatu, one of the ladies who was detained when she went for reporting. Among other campaigns that we were campaigning against was being accommodated in Bibi's prison badge, and also the Rwanda issue, which means as an organizer, we would kind of, we were feeling overwhelmed because there's always one thing after the other. And the painful thing with the past few weeks or few months is that all these issues are no longer debated in court. So they can just wake up in the morning and say there's now this new policy. We have women who have been granted their refugee status about a month ago, and for now they cannot bring their children because everything has changed. You can only bring your children if you are earning at least 29,000. And these women that we're talking about, at this current moment, they're homeless. There is housing problems in UK. They haven't put their life together. There is a long gap on their CVs. Where have they been, so that they can get the proper jobs that will at least earn them half of that money that is needed. And on top of that, they need to pay for those legal fees. And also, one thing that has been a challenge as well was proving that when I said I left my daughter in Africa, is that person real my daughter? So you have to pay for DNA as well to prove as part of your evidence. My daughter managed to join me about 2 years ago, after I've been granted 5 years ago. So when she joined me, she came as a teenager. I left her as a baby. I never took her to a first day at school. When she came to join me, she was a teenager. And I was living with this stranger in my house. She never at some point believed I'm a mom. We are trying to build that relationship. So this is what women are going through. And this is why at some point we are calling all our allies, because that those people who are directly affected, the people who are witness what we are going through, and the allies, we can stand in the gap. Like she said, when you are campaigning, you knock more than 5 times in one door. But the challenge now is that as campaigners, we're being criminalized. So I cannot take it, and the strength and the resilience that I worked hard to build, for now it's useless. I'm scared. It's been 6 years that I've been organizing. I'm really scared to take it to the streets. I know the changes. I know what it does if we go out there. I know that we give women hope. In some of you on the seats, I've put one of these. On the 18th of October, we're going to Durham, where it's a women detention center. That's to show solidarity to those women who are detained in there. But as an organizer, I'm organizing, but the most people that I want in front right now is the allies. Because if I get there is a good character citizenship policy that they've put. If I break the law, the so-called law, I won't qualify to get the British citizenship. My colleagues won't qualify to get that. So this is where it is. We feel like, as people with lived experience, our voices are being silenced. Our voices are being threatened. And for this session to be where it is today, and for you to go back to say this session was impactful, it's because you've heard from her own experiences, why she left home. It makes sense. But then if our voices are being silenced and you don't get to hear that, you're only going to rely on academics, on research. But those people who are affected will say this is happening to women in the UK, the country that prides itself to be fighting for human rights. We're having women in detention center. We had one of our members last year, Fatu, who was detained, and we had to fight. She was being taken from the detention center, being moved to another space at 3 a.m. at night. 3 a.m. in the morning, she was taken from Newcastle in Durham to Yalswood, and then from Yalswood to the airport. Even if we are organizing, we'll be sleeping by that time. The moment she calls and says, I'm being moved, we are fast asleep. So they're very calculative. And when we spoke to Fatu, she said, if I just hear the sound of keys, they trigger me, because I was caged like a criminal. Not only me, when I got there, she found more than 80 women who don't know why they're in there. Some of them cannot speak in English. They cannot understand what's going on. And she found them in there, and she was like, this fight is not for me. It's for the women that I've left in there. We decided as legal educators and campaigners to go to Liverpool, where Fatu was detained from in April, to give these sessions to empower women who are still in the system, to tell them about their rights, to kind of, we are not going to protest, we are not going to fight. The far rights are out there. We cannot challenge them. So we'd rather build resilience within our communities. It's when I met a young woman who was called Areta. On the 2nd of October, she called me and said, Maggy, I've been detained. I'm in Yalswood. A young, beautiful woman from Albania, a victim of trafficking for that matter. So sometimes it feels like we are not winning, we are losing, we are so overwhelmed, we are burnt out, and at the same time, our voices are important, our voices are needed for that change. So as much as I can come here and say, I want money, with that money, there's nothing I can do, because we don't even feel safe in the spaces where we meet and gather, in the spaces where we empower other women. As soon as you are being identified as an organizer, I've got so many hurtful emails. After organizing Fatu's campaign, which was a success, by the way, we had about 26,000 signatures, and we had managed to raise the funds for her legal support, and she was let out. But we had so many hurtful messages, so many hurtful emails that were coming in, that we want to make Britain our own country. So we are scared. We are burnt out. So at this moment, years ago, I would come here and I'll bring my donation bank and say, guys, even £5. We are at that moment where we don't need money. I've organized 2 funerals this year. One young man who was exploited, and the mother was seeking asylum, a 19-year-old. We shared with FiLiA, maybe some of you donated to that one. And instead of the mother worried about laying to rest his son, he was worried about detention. He received a letter from Home Office that she had not submitted a fresh claim. When the son passed away, they said, you were in a 2-bedroom apartment because you had a son. Now we have to move you. At that moment, we are fighting, putting money together so that we can have a decent burial for this boy. They don't care. They're heartless. We lost another one who committed suicide. So for me, I wouldn't know what the road ahead lies, how it looks like. If you ask me and say, Maggie, what can we do? I don't have I don't have an answer, but all I can tell you is that our women are being continuously abused by the system, using the terms that everyone they see every day on the social media, or when the Labour government is saying it, they're comfortable with, they don't challenge it. So this is the time where our allies, every time when something comes out there, you have to stand up for us. You have to challenge it. Otherwise, our voices will be silenced. This is the last solidarity march I organized last year. Instead of a protest after the far-right attacks, I said I would rather organize a solidarity march so that our communities can see that the people really cares for them. And that was the last one, and I don't think I've got the energy with fear to organize another one. I'm really scared. So that is why I'm saying this meant a lot to our community. They saw how much, they saw big numbers in Manchester, people coming to show solidarity. But we are at the point whereby we really can't do it anymore. And then in closing, what I would love to say, please join up, especially when it comes to these campaigns, to these protests, to speaking up. Use Twitter, use your social media handles, especially for everything that you've had here today. Speak up, talk to your MPs. Some of the people who helped us when we were campaigning for FATU were the MPs who really understood and were with us. So we really need advocacy. We want you to take action, and we want you to come with us on the 18th of October. So for some of people who are here, it's going to be in Durham. This is where we are going to organize and show solidarity where Arietta is. Hopefully she will still be there. They would have not deported her. And one final thing, I think when we were speaking with the members to say, what is it that we want? All we want is that maybe we can have some equipment where we can do podcasts, where we can share our stories in a safe space. That's the only thing that we can ask in terms of action. You can just send us, whether it's microphones or whether it's old camera. Those are the things that we want, because right now we just want our voices to be out there as much as we are scared to take action and do it ourselves.
Thank you, Maggie. Another absolutely amazing, amazing talk. I'm now going to turn over to Atena and Tuba. I'll pass the microphone down.
So Atena, hello, good morning. Good morning. Oh, okay. So Atena would like to introduce herself, and she prefers to speak without the microphone. She prefers to speak without the microphone because I will be hearing her and I will be translating, if that's okay.
سلام میکنم به همه شما عزیزان. خیلی خوشحالم که در جمع شما هستم. من هم همونطور که مرزیه عزیز گفتن برخلاف میلم، علیرغم میلم مجبور شدم که از کشورم خارج بشم و بله انگلیسی یاد گرفتن خیلی سخته و من مجبورم که الان فارسی صحبت بکنم و دوست عزیزم برای من ترجمه کنم و امیدوارم که این سختی رو بتونم پشت سر بذارم و سالهای آینده بتونم خودم صحبت بکنم.
Hello everyone, I'm really pleased to be here, and like Marzia said in her speech, I also did not have a choice to leave my country, and it was also difficult for me to learn English and basically be and adjust and adapt to the society and the country that I had to immigrate to.
برای دفاع از حقوق زنان و برای مخالفت با اعدام در زندان بودم. حکومت جمهوری اسلامی ایران من رو بازداشت کردن و به زندان محکوم کردن و من بعد از 7 سال از زندان آزاد شدم.
The Iranian government, the Islamic Republic of Iran, detained me for over 6 years for my women's rights and human rights activism, and especially my campaigns for executions. And I was in prison for more than 6 years, and nearly 7 years. Atena, yes, nearly 7 years, and I was released after that.
در اون مدتی که در زندان بودم از هر شیوهی برای تنبیه من استفاده کردن، از اینکه من رو در سلول انفرادی نگه دارن، از اینکه خانوادم رو اذیت و آزار بکنن، از اینکه اجازه درمان به من ندادن و مدام برای من پرونده های جدید باز می‌کردن و من رو بیشتر از اون چیزی که قرار بود در زندان بمونم نگه داشتن، یعنی حبس من رو اضافه کردن.
Okay. During the time that I was in prison, I was subjected to different types of abuses, from being kept in solitary confinement, to harassing and abusing my family, to constantly changing the cases and producing new cases and new crimes and new problems for me. So it was not easy, and it was very difficult for me to pass those 7 years.
بعد از 7 سال توی اون 7 سال 2 بار من رو به زندان دیگری تبعید کردن و در نهایت بعد از 7 سال از زندان آزاد شدم و وقتی که از زندان اومدم بیرون فهمیدم که توی اون دوره زندان به بیماری سختی مبتلا شدم و همون بیماری باعث شد که من حالا در ادامه توضیح میدم که چطور مجبور شدم که از ایران از کشورم خارج بشم.
So she was moved to a different prison, and because when she was in prison she was being denied healthcare and medicine, she then realized that she has a disease which would you like to yeah, she realized that she has MS, and she will later explain how that disease caused her to leave the country.
آزادی من از زندان همزمان شد با آغاز خیزش زن زندگی آزادی و من هم مثل خیلی از زنان دیگر فعال بودم در ایران و همین باعث شد که دوباره بخوان من رو بازداشت بکنن و من مجبور شدم که برای 8 ماه در داخل ایران زندگی مخفیانه داشته باشم.
So when she was released, her release was coincide with the Women's Life Freedom movement. And of course, she would be one of those women who would be targeted and who would be detained again. And that was the moment when she decided to leave the country.
Yes. بعد از 8 ماه زندگی مخفیانه در ایران من تصمیم گرفتم که به خاطر درمانم از ایران خارج بشم و مجبور شدم که شرایط خیلی سختی رو پشت سر گذاشتم. مجبور شدم که 10 ساعت راه برم توی کوه‌ها تا بتونم از مرز کشور خارج بشم و به یک کشور دیگه برسم و الان نزدیک به 2 سال هستش که من در کانادا زندگی میکنم.
So she was hidden for about 8 months before she left Iran. And then she had to go through very difficult ways. So she had to walk for about 10 hours in mountains and hard roads until she had to and managed to escape and leave the country and go to Canada. And she is living in Canada for the past 2 years.
اینا رو گفتم که بخوام توضیح بدم که همونطور که توی این روایت خود شخصی خود من میبینی مجازات هایی که حکومت ایران برای زنان صادر میکنه نه برای برقراری عدالت بلکه فقط برای این هستش که کنترل اجتماعی داشته باشه، برای این هستش که زنان رو بترسونه از اینکه بخوان فعالیت دیگری بکنن، بخوان ادامه بدن به مبارزه هاشون. حالا این در مورد زندانیان سیاسی هست، اما در مورد زنان دیگه هم به همین شکله.
So my life experience and my lived experience is a perfect example to show that the government is making the activism and women's rights activism come at a high price for women, to stop them from continuing their activism, and how like the disease that Atena has, and she's emphasizing that it was the result of being in prison, and because she was denied medical health care, she did not know. She was diagnosed very late, and that has impacted her health in general. And and she's emphasizing that these punishments are a social control. The government is using this to punish women, to generally socially control the society.
بله همونطور که گفتم این برای در واقع ابزاری هست برای کنترل جامعه و فارغ از اون شرایطی رو ایجاد میکنن که فقط بخوان قدرت خودشون رو حفظ بکنن، نه اینکه عدالتی برقرار بکنن، نه اینکه بخوان باعث بشن که یک جرمی دیگه تکرار نشه. هم در مورد زندانیان سیاسی اینطور هستش که مدام همه همچنان دارن فعالیت میکنن، همه دارن مبارزه میکنن و هی بیشتر داره میشه، و هم در مورد جرائم دیگه از جمله قتل، سرقت و چیزهای دیگه، مواد مخدر هم باز هم اونها هم این مجازات ها هیچ بازدارندگی نداره و مدام داره بیشتر میشه، چون هدف این نیستش که بخوان مسائلی رو ریشه‌ای برطرف بکنن، عمق مسئله‌ای رو بهش بپردازن و اون رو برطرفش بکنن. هدف فقط این هست که بترسونن و قدرت خودشون رو حفظ بکنن.
So the Iranian government is using these punishments to have more control and keep the status quo and keep the structural power that they have. It's not to prevent crimes, be it the political activists or the other criminals. These punishments are not preventive, but they are used as a tool to have control and power over the society.
به همین دلیل هست زنان در چنین شرایطی، در یک چنین سیستمی فقط یک بار مجازات نمیشن، دو بار مجازات میشن. یکی به خاطر زن بودنشون هست که مجازات میشن و دیگری به این دلیل هستش که در مقابل قانون و در مقابل دولت ایستادن. و زنان در سیستم جمهوری اسلامی ایران بیشتر از مردان محکومیت میگیرن. یعنی تو همه چیزهای دیگه میگن زن ضعیف‌تره، زن نصف مرده، زن نمیتونه حق و حقوق کامل داشته باشه، اما در مجازات نه تنها زن هم قواره مرده، بلکه حتی سنگین‌تر از یک مرد مجازات میشه. ما مجازات هایی داریم مثل سنگسار برای زنان و این هنوز در ایران داره صادر میشه.
So women in the like in Iran, women are being punished twice. Once just being a woman, and once because the government punishes women on a higher level. For example, there are punishments for women like stoning and flogging, and women are facing very high sentences in comparison to men.
در نظام سیاسی ایران در واقع زنانی که از حکومت و از مردان اطاعت نمی‌کنن به نوعی منحرف شناخته میشن و حکومت میخواد که اونها رو به مسیر درست هدایت بکنه و باعث میشه که بخواد مجازات اونها رو سخت‌تر بکنه، که همونطور که گفتم مثل سنگسار، شلاق، از این مجازات ها استفاده میکنه. و حتی در مورد زندانیان سیاسی خب بعد از اون خیزش زن زندگی آزادی ما داریم میبینیم که مجازات های شدیدتری داره برای زنان صادر میشه. ما در حال حاضر 4 زن رو داریم که در زندان به اعدام محکوم شدن.
So in the system of Islamic Republic of Iran, as Atena mentioned, she's emphasizing again that women are being punished twice, and they are being punished more severely, especially after the women life freedom movement. These sentences, these punishments are getting worse and worse because women are perceived as bad women, and they're trying to, at least this is how they present it, that they are trying to rehabilitate them and help them. This is how they present it. And the punishments that they are receiving are a lot higher than men also participating in the movement.
من یه تحقیقی انجام دادم، نمیدونم شاید هم دارم اشتباه میکنم، اما فکر میکنم الان حدوداً 4 میلیارد و نیم جمعیت زنان سراسر جهان باشه. اما از این 4 میلیارد و نیم جمعیت زنان در سراسر دنیا ما 4 زن رو داریم که بیشتر از 15 ساله که در زندان به سر میبرن، که 2 نفر از اونها ایرانی هستند، زینب جلالیان و مریم اکبری منفرد، و 2 نفر دیگر از یک منطقه از شرق آفریقا هستند. و جدای از اون ما 4 نفر رو در ایران داریم که از زنانی هستن که به اعدام محکومن: شریف محمدی، پخشان عزیزی، وریشه مرادی و نسیمه اسلامزاهی.
4 میلیارد رو میشه دوباره بگی؟
4 میلیارد و نیم جمعیت زنان هستن در سراسر جهان و 4 نفر هستن که بیشتر 15 سال در حال حاضر در زندان به سر میبرن.
Okay, Atena has done a research that there are over like 4 billion and a half women around the world. And amongst these women, there are 4 women who are imprisoned in Iran. And like they have been sentenced to more than 15 years. Other than that, there are other women who are currently on a death row. And I can say their name as Atena said: Sharif Mohammadi, Verishe Moradi, Zainab Jalalian, and Pakhshan Azizi.
و اینها تازه چیزهایی بود که در مورد مجازات ها داره اتفاق میفته که چه شیوهی جمهوری اسلامی ایران داره زنان رو مجازات میکنه. اما فقط اینها نیست، در واقع از طریق تحریم های حکومتی هم این زنان دارن دوباره مجازات میشن، به شکل دیگری دارن مجازات میشن، دیگه از حالت زندان و بازداشت و انفرادی خارج میشه، در زندگی روزمرهشون این مجازات ها شکل میگیره.
So the punishment of women in Iran does not stop there. So on the state level, the Iranian women get the punishments of stoning, flogging, imprisonment, and they don't have the right of custody, the child marriage, or like other rights, other basic rights. On an international level, Iranian women are also subjected to the sanctions that are meant to target the Islamic Republic of Iran, but on a different level, on the ground, it impacts women and most vulnerables, like those who are suffering from chronic diseases, or the children, or the most advantages of people in Iran.
بله، تحریم هایی که در واقع به دو دسته تقسیم میشن، بخشش رو البته گفتن دوستان فارسی زبان، من احتمالاً متوجه شدید. تحریم هایی که در واقع هم از سمت به این شکل داره اتفاق میفته که حکومت کارهای خلاف قانون بین المللی انجام میده و کشورهای دیگه حکومت رو تنبیه میکنن، تحریم میکنن، اما زنان بیشترین اثر رو از این تحریم ها دارن دریافت میکنن، چه از لحاظ بهداشتی، چه از لحاظ درآمد، به خاطر اینکه زنان شغل‌های کم درآمدی دارن و زنان بیشترین آسیب رو میبینن و از طرفی خود حکومت هم داره مستقیما علیه زنان تحریم‌های رو اعمال میکنه.
So these sanctions are, as previously mentioned, are meant to target the government, but obviously because the power and the resources are not distributed equally, those who would be impacted are women, the children, and the most vulnerable and disadvantaged people. And that's one side of the sanctions. The other side of the sanctions is the government who is directly sanctioning women in different ways.
و تحریم هایی که خود حکومت علیه زنان اعمال میکنه ممنوعیت هایی هست که برای زنان صادر میکنه. مثلا زنان حق تحصیل در بعضی از رشته های تحصیلی رو ندارن، زنان حق انتخاب بعضی از رشته های ورزشی رو ندارن، زنان نمیتونن به بعضی از اماکن عمومی مثل ورزشگاه ها حاضر باشن یا زنان نمیتونن بخونن. اینها بخشی از ممنوعیت های اجتماعی هست که برای زنان صادر میکنن و اینها رو حکومت علیهشون اعمال میکنه. زنان نمیتونن موتور سواری بکنن، زنان نمیتونن دوچرخه سواری بکنن. حالا این میخواین بگیم بعد.
So the state sanctions come in the forms of banning women from singing in the public, from having the choice of studying in certain fields, from being able to sing in the public, from being able to ride a motorbike or motorcycle, or even enter the stadiums. They're not allowed to go and watch a football match. So these are the state sanctions.
و از طرفی هم حکومت یک سری از قوانین رو که در واقع زنان باید داشته باشن که اینجا هم در موردش صحبت شده، از اینکه زنان حق طلاق ندارن، زنان حق حضانت فرزند ندارن، زنان ارث یا دیه برابر ندارن. اینها هم بخشی از اون به صورت ناخودآگاه یا خودآگاه مجازات هایی هستش که حکومت داره علیه زنان استفاده میکنه و این محرومیت ها و این ممنوعیت ها، این تحریم ها خودش عواقب خیلی بدی برای زنان داره. از خشونت هایی که زنان متحمل میشن، از قتل های زنان که داره در ایران خیلی زیاد اتفاق میفته و موارد دیگه که اگر که فرصت باشه در ادامه خواهم.
So these sanctions, which come in the form of some of them that were mentioned in the previously. Sorry. So the sanctions that come in the form of being banned from going to the stadiums or studying in a certain field, or being able to sing in the public, or not having the right of the custody or the divorce, or even coming out of the country, so it has all be like with the permission of the man in their lives. They like subsequently lead to women being more prone to being like exploited, sexually exploited, or being subjected to domestic violence or other forms of violence.
با این حال با همه این اتفاقاتی که داره میفته، زنان همچنان دارن به مبارزه هاشون ادامه میدن، با وجودی که خیلی چیزا براشون ممنوعه، اما زنان میرن و اون کار رو انجام میدن. در خیابان میرن موتور سواری میکنن، میرن کارهای مثل این میکنن و سعی میکنن که جلوی حکومت بایستن و جدای از اون زنانی که فعال هستن جنبش‌های مدنی رو شکل میدن، نهادهای مدنی رو ایجاد میکنن و سعی میکنن که همچنان به مبارزهشون ادامه بدن.
Despite all these pressures and despite all these problems, women are continuing to resist, and they show their resistance on an everyday basis. They take it to the streets. They go and do the motorbike riding, and they show their resistance in different ways, and they have not stopped standing up for themselves and asking for their basic rights.
Thank you, everyone. I'm so sorry to have asked for the 5-minute call. I hate doing that, especially when we're hearing the stories that we are, but I'm aware that there are more papers to go to, and I wanted to give the audience a little bit of a chance to be able to make their comments. Before I do, I'm just going to say my own kind of closing wrap-up, just in case. I think what we've heard here is something very powerful. The law is never neutral. The state is never neutral. It is the voice of the government. It is the voice of the state. And the state's relationship with women, wherever we are in the world, is ambivalent. In some cases, the state is the guarantor of our rights. In other cases, it's the violator of our rights. The same government that might celebrate women's victories, I mean, not that we've seen it in this country, but hey-ho, will also deport women fleeing regimes that deny their humanity, and they may be those regimes that deny women's humanity. This contradiction is not accidental, it is structural. So those are my final comments. Please, can I invite some questions and comments from the audience? We have 15 minutes. I don't know if we've got a runner for microphone, but can you just hold your...
We do, but the microphones aren't up, so I'm happy to amplify any woman.
Okay, so we'll take about 3 or 4 questions and then throw it open.
Hello everyone. Just asking, would you prefer me to speak Farsi first and ask my question, and then I translate it to the English? Is that okay with you? So Atena, سوال من برای شما اینه که خب من خیلی شما رو فالو میکردم. شما از من خیلی جوان‌تری. من تو خونه بزرگ شدم که پدر من پلیتیکال پریزنر بود. آشنا هستم با سختی هایی که خانواده‌ها تحمل میکنن و همون چیزی که بر خود شخص میگذره. سوال من برای تو اینه که من اینو از دیدگاهی که یه زن تجربه میکنه تو ایران واقعا باش آشنا نیستم. سوالم خیلی جنیه، میخوام بدونم چی شما رو به قدرت داد همه این سالها علیرغم این هزینه سنگینی که دادی، از سلامتیت گرفته تا حقت برای تحصیل، تا بیستی برای حق کودکان، برای حق زنان که شاید خودتو نمیدونی، خودتو یکی از اون 40 میلیون زنی بودی که تو ایران بودی. خب مثلا من از اون سختیه زدم بیرون، تو موندی 7 سال از سالهای خیلی ارزشمند زندگی تو فدا کردی. چی تو رو بهت قدرت داد که بتونی ادامه بدی این رو؟ اگه اجازه بدی من ترنسلیتش کنم بعد. Yes. 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 My question was about what has empowered her to endure all this difficulty, all the challenges she's been through, and to pay such a high cost in terms of her health, her right to education, her life, her right to life, everything to sacrifice for such a cause. What has empowered her for all these years to just keep fighting and pay such a cost? That was my question.
با این بگی یا نه؟
نه
اوکی. خب
چیزی که به من قدرت داد که بتونم تمام اون سختی‌ها رو تحمل بکنم و بیام جلو این بود که من می‌دیدم که خب فقط من نیستم. اگر قرار باشه که من هم مثل خیلی های دیگه بشینم هیچ کاری نکنم، هیچ وقت هیچ چیزی درست نمیشه. اشکال نداره اگر که من زندگیم رو از دست میدم، اشکال نداره که اگر من سلامتیم رو از دست میدم، سالهای جوونیم رو از دست میدم، اما این ارزشش رو داره به این که ما نسل‌های آیندهمون حداقل بدونن چه حق و حقوقی باید داشته باشن.
What helped me to go through those difficulties and endure all those difficulties was that I felt like I have to speak up. If I don't speak up, I can't expect other people to speak up. And even if it's going to be costly for me, it comes at a high price, then I can ensure that the future generations would be able to have the rights that they have long been waiting to have.
Anyone else? Yes.
Short questions, please. Sorry. Thank you, everybody. My question is mainly to Marzia, but it's National Girls' Day in Afghanistan today, although it's been scrubbed from the calendar. So I wondered if you had a message of hope for all those girls and young women struggling to really believe in something for their future.
Education is a power, but thank you so much for bringing this important topic in the discussion. Education Afghan girls, they are still at home, but they are not at home. It means they carry on with their education. There are a lot of organizations, they helping hidingly our girls. And also, there's a good English phrase we have, nothing lasts forever. And we have a hope for Afghanistan.
Anyone? Beulah?
Okay. You're next.
Pass it up.
Go on, you go. Okay. Well, first of all, it's not really a question, but a comment, if that's okay. But thank you very much. I mean, it's so chilling, of course, to hear about your experiences and to now be seeing so many countries around the world where the state itself is premised on misogyny and hatred of women. But as Joe mentioned in the introduction, even in a country like our own, we see a state which has signed up to all the international human rights conventions, that including CEDAW, and believes in the protection of women, that it is operating a system where women are routinely criminalized for being victims of abuse and for fighting back. We just need to remember that there is a continuum along those lines. I'm from the Centre for Women's Justice in England, and we've also worked across countries to kind of compare really the experiences across different jurisdictions. So thanks. And we have a screening in the next session of a film which is about women who are incarcerated for very long sentences for surviving male violence and killing their abuser in doing so.
Thank you.
Thank you. That was incredibly that was incredibly powerful and moving. So thank you to all the speakers. My question is, how do we continue, as you do, to speak out both against the sort of patriarchies in the context that we come from as women of color, while making sure that that doesn't feed into the kind of anti-racist, the racist rhetoric from the far right?
Anyone on the table want to take that? Anyone?
I feel like it's really difficult. That is why when we, on our campaigning, we have allies, we have people with lived experience. And when it comes to allies, we always ask you guys to use your privileges. This is where you step in. And also, I would love to take a quote from one of my mentors who said, beware of the nice people who always say, I want to be nice, I just want to be neutral. Those are the most dangerous people, because the system is racist. Call it what it is.
Thank you. Is there anybody else with a question? Anyone? Thank you.
Excuse me, that's fine. Thank you too for those wonderful contributions. A friend through a network that I'm involved with has been reaching out to women in Afghanistan with counselling support and trying to connect people together. But I had a message from her recently, I hope she might be here today, that smartphones have just been banned by the Taliban, and they're now going around and collecting people's smartphones, which is an additional danger because they're picking up data and information. I wondered if you had any news about that. Thanks.
Thank you. This was happened weeks ago in Afghanistan, but currently the people can use their mobiles, but as I know, and this morning I received messages from our female judges group, currently the smartphone is working. Maybe some villages or maybe some places, maybe it doesn't. So we can talk about it after this session. Thank you so much for doing this.
I just want to add to that, especially for women who are detained here in the UK, the first thing that they take away from me is a smartphone. So one of the support that we do with our women who we know that at risk of detention, we always buy them the small banner phones. So that it takes away the evidence that they want to take inside the detention centers, because they're being raped in there. One of the ladies said the security guy or the enforcement team told her that, I'm British, if you get my baby, you go, you don't have to be detained, you stay here. So she doesn't have that evidence because they took her smartphone away. So as soon as someone is detained, first thing that they take from the place where they take you, they take your smartphone away.
I don't actually know how to finish. And those who know me well will know I'm very rarely at a loss for words, but I am slightly at a loss for words. It's been quite a session. So what I want to do is just end with a few reminders, if you don't mind. In the next session, as Harriet mentioned, there's a film called Fight Back. It's at 1:45 in the Skyline. It's a new film and campaign on behalf of women who have killed. I encourage you all to go and see it. It's a salutary lesson that whilst we may be celebrating things like the 4 Women Scotland judgment, we still have a mountain to climb where it comes to women in the criminal justice system, and especially victimized women who end up in the criminal justice system for trying to escape, survive that victimization. So I also want to remind everyone of the National Day of Solidarity to End Immigration Detention that Maggy said, 18th of October in Durham. If you're anywhere in the Northeast, please go along to that. And finally, I want to mention again the Afghan Judge Project. Keep an eye on my Twitter and my Substack. If you subscribe, you'll get the stuff anyway. If you don't, then keep an eye on my Twitter. All the information will be there. And so please, oh yes, sorry, remind you of the handle. I'm Joe Phoenix 1. I know, somebody said I was vain. Couldn't possibly admit to that. All right, in the final minutes, okay, we've got one housekeeping. Okay, but in the final minutes, can you please put your hands together again to thank these amazing women?